and tonight we have a very special guest. If you are new to the call, though, please stay on, and we will get you some support, some additional TalkShoe podcast numbers, and some helpful links and websites. This is a solutions and educational-based podcast, but the views and opinions of my guests are not necessarily my own personal views and opinions. My goal is that everyone can obtain something out of tonight, especially a feeling of empowerment. If you have any suggestions, comments, questions, especially if you are in need of additional support, please don't hesitate to email me at tiangel2016@gmail.com. Again, that's tiangel2016@gmail.com. So before we get to my guest, I would like to talk about a few things. From what I understand, some of these after calls have been a little divisive and a lot of perping and interference and things like that. So I just wanted to say that, if you're new, I wouldn't even suggest going to the later calls. I think Kyle manages this call, and typically Ryan does too, but he's been having some problems with his board. But I am concerned about just some of the things that go on, and understand that there's COINTELPRO outside the community, like the people around you, starting rumors and trying to take you down and make you isolated. So it's going on within the community, too. They don't want people unifying. They send people in to cause division, to start rumors, and to create problems. And sometimes it's just targets who don't, we don't all agree, and we don't all have the same perspective. And so sometimes it's just personality issues with them, I like to say. But so I am sorry for that, and I do think we need to be bigger than that, and we need to unify. That's the only way we're going to beat this. And and I'm sorry that there are perps within the community, and I'm sorry that they can make it confusing and they can cause additional paranoia. But, there's plenty of people here to support you and give people a chance to kind of, watch people for a long time. If people are doing good, for long periods of time, they're probably not perps, but it's unfortunate that this goes on within our community. And, just like in many social situations, there's people who cause rumors, and you know how the story goes. You're sitting in a circle. You say one thing to one person. By the time it gets around the circle, it's a completely different story, and that's kind of what happens in this community. So I just give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and I actually don't get caught up in drama. I try to straighten it out, but drama is not productive, and it doesn't help anyone. We need to put our focus on taking care of yourself, giving support, and educating yourself and doing activism, most importantly, in my own opinion, and kind of sticking together and not getting caught up in drama and the nonsense. And if you're new, you're not going to know what the drama is and who's being honest and who's not. And you just have to wait it out. Just stand back objectively, and you'll get a sense. But I remember being confused when I came to the community, too, and I remember being attacked right when I entered the community. And, but I just had to develop a little thicker skin, unfortunately, in a community that we need to be supportive of one another. But there are supportive people, and there's supportive moderators, and there's really educating calls that have a real important educational stance, not referring to mine, but other ones as well. And so I hope that you guys can keep that in mind, and just know that, perps are in the community too, and they try to cause problems, and that's just how it is. And, there's also paranoia, so that's sometimes a component as well. So, but use your instincts, give people a little time to prove themselves, and that's my little input for today. I just get emails from people, and they're very saddened by some of the calls and some of the immaturity and, middle school behavior and all that. And I know it's very hard, and it can be scary if you're new. So I'm sorry that happens. Like I said, if you need support from supportive people, you can reach out to me or other people that you trust, and they can point you in the right direction of supportive people. So anyways, to get back to our guest, which is very important, his name is Steve R. Baysden, or Baz. How do you say your last name, Stephen? Baysden. Yeah. And you're from Illinois, and you owned and operated 2 successful businesses, earning $200,000 a year, and one was a trucking company hauling flatbed freight around the country and into Canada, and you had real estate business as well, and you had rental properties, and you rented and resold distressed properties. You have a loving daughter and 2 beautiful grandchildren, and after this happened to you, your whole life turned around 180 degrees, and you're trying hard to live as a Christian. And then this, happened to you, and so here you are to tell your story. So maybe to give back, let's go back to the beginning, and even maybe a little bit before. Like, I know you had a very interesting life, so do you want to start from there, like when you were young and what you were involved with and how you came to be such the good man that you are today?
Well, I thank you for that, Ella. I'll leave that for others to judge whether I'm a good man. I do try to be a Christian now. I haven't always been. Going back to for a little bit of a backstory, it might give people a little bit of insight. It's going a ways back, but back in my 20s and up to my mid-30s, I belonged to and was an officer of a fairly notorious motorcycle club in Illinois and was involved in the cocaine trade and everything else that went with that kind of lifestyle. And for that, not saying that I'm proud of it, but the relevance of that is the deeper that I got into that lifestyle and into the drug trade, the more powerful people that I met. And you wouldn't think it would be that way, and it shouldn't be that way, but it is. And so when we progress through the story a little bit, if people wonder how I knew this person or that person, in a lot of ways, in a lot of instances, it was from that time. It was from my life in the underworld as it was, and the deeper I got into it, the more powerful people you meet. And it got to the point that one of the reasons that I even got out of it, among other things, and my first wife leaving me because she was tired of the nonsense, and it got to the point that you couldn't tell good guys from bad guys whenever you start realizing that the CIA and other people that are supposed to be taking care of this country are actually more interested in taking over the drug trade, etc. It was time for me to move on and wise up. At which point I did and started turning my life around. And anything that I ever did, I always did with a lot of gusto.
Determination and 100%. Yeah, you're very best.
I did, and so I took that and I started trying to build an honest life and began going to church, reading my Bible, etc. That was a long, slow process. My conversion. I mean, whenever you went down the wrong road, as far as I did, you don't just turn it around overnight, or at least I didn't. It was a long, slow process, but I was well on my way, and I took that drive that I had, and I started trying to do things right, and I built a little bit of a real estate business, starting with one rental property, and built it up, and had, at one time I had 6 or 8 of them at once, I think. Nothing big, just duplex, little fourplexes, single properties, etc. And had one guy that worked for me full time that took care of the rental properties, and I would buy houses, distressed houses, and fix them up and resell them. And had my own truck. I always drove a truck for a living for other people, for the Teamsters, etc. Hauled cars and various other jobs. But I decided to buy my own truck, and whenever I did that, it was successful. Owning your own truck is there's good money in it if you do it right and you haul the right equipment. And between the 2 jobs I was doing, between the 2 businesses, I was bringing anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000 a year, and it was doing real good. And I was on my way. I mean, things were getting better. Was I a saint? No, I still had my issues at times. I still like to party once in a while and such, but I was far removed from who I used to be, and was in the right direction anyway. And the money I earned was all honest, and I helped a lot of people. Bought a home for my mother at one point. I helped pay other people's bills whenever they were down and out. I let people move into my house, guys that I had known in the past that were pretty good guys that were down on their luck. I let them. I had a pretty good sized house, and would let people stay with me for a while to get on their feet. I tried to do the right thing by people, and something happened, something took place that was the beginning of my targeting. So
let's do that. Let's approach that into go into that with detail. I'd love to hear that, and I'm sure they would too. Kind of what happened and the man that you encountered and basically what went down.
Well, there were, as I said, the people that I had known from that lifestyle. Some of them were pretty powerful people, and one of them was a lawyer. And I don't think that it would hurt to mention his name. His name splashed all over the internet and the newspapers anyway. And he ended up being arrested and going to prison. So damage was done there. But his name was Tom Lakin. And at one time, we were acquaintances, let's put it that way, and I had even attended parties at his home, and etc. He was a very, very powerful man. If anybody cares to Google him, it's Tom Lakin, Lakin, and you can see a little bit for yourself. He was friends with... And
also online it shows that he was arrested and he was convicted of crime, so that's not slander, that's actually a fact.
No, it is, and we've spoken of this earlier, and we're going to try to avoid... I will do my best to avoid names of people that I know that were involved in things they shouldn't have been, and equally as bad as that weren't arrested or prosecuted, because the way things are now, it isn't the truth that is important. It's what you can prove or disprove in a court of law, which is sad, but that's the way it is. And anyway, that man back... I guess it was it would have been about 98, somewhere around 98. I ran into a couple of guys that I knew from my past that were still friends, that I was kind of out of that lifestyle. They came to me, or they came and found me. I forget how that went down. Anyway, they came to me and told me that they had been at a party at Lakin's house, and that they knew that they seen my daughter there. And that was whenever my daughter was, by that 17, 18 years old, and I got angry about it. And I from that point on, I proceeded to out that guy for who he was, who I knew he was. Everybody knew that he had a thing for the underage, and it didn't matter, boys, girls, it didn't matter. But he had a thing for the underage, and, shame on all of us for ignoring him because of who he was and how powerful he was and his money. So whenever it hit home to me, most people were afraid to even speak out about him. I wasn't, and you see where it got me. We'll get into that as it goes on. But I spoke out about him. I went out and I told people, keep your kids away from him, keep away from him. He's no good. He's not what he seems, and especially keep your kids away from him. Well, anybody that I spoke to, that mentioned him or his name come up, that's what I had said. I ended up even buying a house on the same street he lived on, not because he lived there, and it was in spite of that. It was a beautiful neighborhood. It was the place to be if you lived in that part of Illinois, and so I bought a house up there, about 4 houses down from him on the opposite side of the road. And after living there for a while, word got out that he was kind of up to his old tricks and doing those kinds of things again. And things started getting strange as far as my life went. And at the time, I had no idea what it was. Not everybody's a conspiracy theorist. You think they're having a string of bad luck or whatever else. Well, that wasn't it. Come to find out, due to, and I guess I was blamed for most of it, due to his being what he was doing and his running a drug house, basically, and supplying drugs to underage kids and having sex with them, etc., and it getting public, and I was one of them that helped put it out there. He started being investigated, and the way it was put to me was, men like that don't get investigated until they can no longer ignore it, and this was even put to me by law enforcement in that area who loved that guy, they treat him like a god. So whenever his name became too public and what he was doing, they had to take action. Well, before doing it, they warned him. I mean, he was warned by the FBI, the local authorities, what was coming. And that man started buying people gifts left and right. My daughter was one of them. He came and even met me one day in a bar and sat down next to me. I looked at him and I thought, why is this guy sitting next to me? I don't like him and he doesn't like me. And he looked over at me and he asked me why did I continue to run him down and say bad things about him. I said, because that's who you are, you know. And then he got a little angry with me and said, you know, your daughter's that daughter of yours, that job she's got, that good job as an accountant, I got that for her. And I said, well, why would you do that? Like, for what reason did you give my daughter a job? She's a college graduate. She could have got her own job. And he proceeded to tell me I should be thankful, you know, and I shouldn't be mad at him. I shouldn't say bad things about him. I said, you know, I'm not thankful to you for nothing. The guy left. I called my daughter and asked her again, you know, I asked her if this was true, that he had got her job. And she asked me, you know, to stay out of it, to quit looking into that. She knew how this guy was, and she was kind of afraid of him. I wasn't. Most people in that town were. And I told her, I said, you know, you need to stay away from this guy. You just don't know what you're doing here. Yeah, he's powerful. Yeah, he can give you money, cars, gifts, homes, jobs. But you need to stay away from him. Well, I started looking into it a little bit deeper. It wasn't just her that he was giving that to. He was giving gifts of large amounts of money, automobiles, homes, trips, jobs, all kinds of things to many people about that age range. This is because he had been forewarned of what was coming, and he was buying off everyone that could testify against him. There were people that he sent out of town. I mean, gave enough money to get out of town, people that knew enough that he didn't want them testifying so they wouldn't be called to testify. Anyhow, for all that the man did wrong, the guy got his hand slapped. I mean, you wouldn't think that being arrested for child molestation or he was convicted, which he wasn't. He pled no contest, so he wouldn't be actually convicted of that. He was a brilliant lawyer, make no mistake about it, brilliant lawyer. And he pleaded to one of the counts, I guess, of no contest. He got, I think it was 6 years or something. He was out in 3 or 4. And about that time that he went in was about the time Barack Obama became president. And like I said, this man if you read about him on the internet, he was a power broker. He was rich. He owned a home in Malibu, lived next door to stars, Sylvester Stallone, etc. Wealthy man, friends with the presidents. Barack Obama used to come to his house. The Clintons did. Every time the Clintons come to town, he would sit next to them at their table with fundraisers and such. He knew powerful people, and he was very powerful. He used to, whenever he would drink, whenever I used to be an acquaintance of his, he used to claim he was judge, jury, and prosecutor of that part of Illinois. No one become congressman or senator without his okay or his influence, and even presidents. So that's who he said he was. I used to think he was blowing smoke. He wasn't. The guy was powerful. I do not think that Barack Obama would have become president without that guy's help. I really don't. So that's who he was, and that's how that went down. Whenever he got arrested, and his trial was going on, and he got put in jail, my life took a turn for the worst in a big way, and things started happening. You all know what TIs go through. Well, my business deals started going bad left and right. People turning on me that never did before. You know, it was just, and I still didn't get it. I had no idea what a TI was. You know, I was just thinking, you know, I started figuring it out that it had to do with him and my opposition. And another thing I might add, if people are looking on this and trying to see what was going on there, if you look up on the internet about judicial hellholes, there's actually a website about that. You'll see that Madison County, Illinois courthouse is ranked in the top 10 of all counties in the United States, of which there are, you know, thousands. It's ranked in the top 10 of being a judicial hellhole where people can take lawsuits, and they did, from all over the country, would take them to Madison County, to lawyers like Tom Lakin and the Lakin Law Firm, and there were several others around there that were good at doing it. They had that, I guess I can say this, I don't care if they come after me and sue me to death, to be honest with you, Ollie, but they owned that courthouse. They owned the judges. They owned everything about it. Lawsuits that couldn't be won anywhere else, New York, Texas, California, they came there. They won. They won big money. I mean, billions of dollars were made through that courthouse. And Lakin was one of the men that was responsible for building that money-making machine. So whenever all this went down, it didn't just take him down. It shined a light on that. It hurt that. It hurt that business. That was a business they had going on there, and it hurt that. So I took a lot of the heat for that, for just trying to do the right thing. And anybody who is a halfway decent father found out their daughter was there, and then knew it was other children and stuff that was involved. If you do research on it, you'll find out. And I happen to know more than most people about it. There were dozens. There weren't just one or two. There were dozens. But anyway, where was I, Ellen? Whenever he went to prison was right about the time Barack Obama got elected. Things started going bad, but they were bearable.
Your businesses and everything else. What about your family at that point?
Yeah, things were getting goofy. I mean, like I said, I was having problems with relationships with people, employees, contractors that I had worked with where I got good loads for my truck, subcontractors that did work on my real estates, et cetera, employees. Things just started getting goofy, but they weren't really, really bad. They were bearable, but it was a strain. It was an uphill battle all the time. And then I've got this stuff wrote down. I should have had that part of it. I guess it was about 5 years ago, maybe 4, that he got out of prison. He got an early release, which didn't surprise anybody. So we were surprised he even got put in the first place. But he got an early release. And right when he got out, his cousin got elected sheriff of Madison County. Anybody cares to look that up? It's Madison County, Illinois. You'll look see who the sheriff is. I forget his first name, but it's a Lakin. That's his cousin. Well, between the two things, him getting out and his cousin being elected sheriff, my life went from troublesome and uphill battle to impossible. I mean, it was bad. I mean, nothing worked. Everything was failing. I couldn't get to where I used to get loads that might pay as much as $15,000. I'll let you take an oversized load up into Canada or something that would take me 4 or 5 days. I couldn't hardly get a load of bricks that paid $2,000. It was like that. It was things just were going bad. Real estate deals, that was over. I wasn't buying and selling anything anymore. I was just trying to hang on to what I had. Relationships, my friends, family, even my daughter, who I was really close to, loved her, my grandchildren, even her, she turned on me, she started looking at me. I mean, you could see it in her eyes, she just, instead of looking at me with the look she always had, it was more of one of, like, who are you? And she even asked me that at one point, who are you? So they had an effect. They had, these people are powerful. He had the FBI in his back pocket. I can get into that a little bit more later on whenever I started realizing how that worked. I already didn't have a lot of respect for our intelligence agencies and federal law enforcement from what I knew from my past. There's things you learn whenever you're in that lifestyle that most people don't know and wouldn't believe if you told them. But most of the FBI, and I can't say all of them. I know back there in Illinois, this is how it went down. That their job was more to protect those kind of people than to go after them. I mean, they would protect those interests. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure it out, but I think I have. In the meantime, those guys don't have a long career in the FBI. I mean, some do, but a lot of them are looking for something when they get out, and those powerful people are it. You know, those are the kind of people that will put them to work when they get out. So they're looking out for their own interests in a way, I guess. Things aren't the way they should be. You know, whenever you're living this life, Ella, and you've lived the life that I have, and you've been where I have and seen the things I have, you just it's disappointing at the very least. I know most of the people in the public, they watch TV and see movies with Elliot Ness and at the FBI on these Law and Order or whatever these shows that people like watching, and the FBI are all these smart, sophisticated, righteous people. It's not that way. I mean, it is not. Are there good people in there? I'm absolutely sure there are. But it's a thing gone bad. Anybody can watch the news and see that. I mean, if you've got a D in front of your name up there in Washington, D.C., it seems as if you can do anything you want to do, and they will cover it up. They won't come after you. And if you're a Republican, you can't put Russian salad dressing on your salad without being accused of being a collaborator with the red state over there, So it's top to bottom. It really is. I mean, and it shouldn't be this way. It's not the way this country should be working. But money buys you the opportunity to break the law, disregard the Constitution, have people attacked that know that you have. I mean, you have poor people like Dolly, my friend Dolly over there, just such a sweet person. She wasn't ever involved in things such as I was. Ella, she wasn't involved. All she did was stumble upon some wrongdoing, and look, they're doing the same thing to her. So, one of the common threads among TIs is there seem to be good people that know of wrongdoing in places that they shouldn't. Now, that's not always the case, but it seems to be a lot of it, But back to the story, Ella, back whenever he got out and his cousin got elected sheriff, things just went, I could see the writing on the walls. I was not going to survive it. There was no way. My businesses weren't, and whenever the businesses were gone, the money was going to dry up. It was, my relationships with my friends and family were just hanging by a thread, which they all ended up snapping, and it all went away. So I started looking for answers, and I honestly thought at the time that the FBI, the local law enforcement, etc., would be interested and do something about it. Well, I was really wrong. I mean, no one took interest in it. As a matter of fact, they were hostile towards me at best. Of the 3 times I went to the local FBI office there, and they knew who I was, and that reminds me of another part of it that I can throw in here. First time I went to the FBI office, there was a man that I kept seeing while my life was just going to hell, excuse my language. There was a man that kept popping up, and even then I was like, you're just seeing things, Steve. The guy just looks similar. First, my cable went out in my house, so I called to have him come out. The guy come out to repair it, Spent a lot of time at my house, just a lot of time for a cable repairman. Asked a lot of questions, etc. Anyway, he got finished up. I run into another guy, a gal that I met and was dating for a very short time that lived over in St. Charles, Missouri. I went to her house to pick her up one time to take her out to dinner, and she goes, oh, and by the way, there's a guy that lives in my house. She had a real nice house, big 2-story brick home, upscale neighborhood. She wasn't lacking for money. But for some reason, she was renting a room to a man in her basement. He came in the door to come in, looked just like that guy that had worked on my cable not long ago. And I thought, you're just seeing things, just let it go. And then I got stopped in my tractor trailer by a state cop that wanted to do an inspection on me after I went to load a oversized load that was going to Alberta, Canada. And the load got delayed. I mean, to the point that I told him, hey, look here, you know, this is my truck, this is my business, and if that load isn't on my truck here shortly, I'm leaving, and I'll find another load, and you'll have to find another carrier or another owner-operator to take your load up there, and there ain't a lot of them that can run Canada, so either get the load on my truck or I'm going to have to leave in a very polite way. So we finally got it on there, and it all made sense after I got going down the road. I was running down the interstate. I got pulled over for an inspection. It was the same guy. It was in an ill-fitting state cop's uniform, and it was the same guy. And I started thinking, am I just seeing things here in somebody that's the same? First trip to the FBI, I go to the local FBI office. I walk in, and I just walked in unannounced. I didn't call or anything. There was a gal that worked the reception desk. She goes, yeah, I have a seat over there in that empty office. I'll send someone in to see you. So I went in there and sat down. About 5 minutes later, and opened the door, and then comes walking a guy. And the guy, I looked up, and it's him. It's that same guy that I've seen 3 times. And when he's seen me, his face, his eyes widened up, and he just about turned around to walk back out. And he didn't. He walked on in, and I thought, you got to be kidding me. So this was the FBI agent that I kept seeing over and over again. He knew I knew who he was, and the gig was up. But I went ahead and I started telling him what was going on. He goes, I don't know what you want us to do about this. We're not going to help you with this. Go talk to the state police. So I said, I've been to all those. I've been to them. I said, you want to see the evidence I've got? No, they didn't want to see that. So that was like the first trip in there. I went back 2 more times. Second time, I was told if I didn't like it in Illinois to get out. And it wasn't in a nice way. It was get out. Third time I went back there, one of them told me that in a laughing kind of way, just not taking me serious at all, said, you ever think about going and seeking mental help? And I got pretty angry with that guy. I said, is that what you tell your citizens that come in here asking for help? You don't even look into it. You tell them to seek mental help. You know, that meeting didn't go very well. But after that was over, I had decided maybe they're trying to give me a message, and I've got the money, and I still got my trucking company. I'll sell my real estate. I'll get out of this area. At that time, I knew what was going on. It became obvious, and I'd even gotten messages. A man that I used to know, another powerful guy that was, I won't mention his name, but I'll want to tell you what he kind of was.
You can say his first name.
No, I better not.
Okay.
I better not. You'll know why in a minute. This guy was kind of loosely affiliated with the mob, and I had dated his daughter at one time, and we were really close friends at one time. I had a lot of respect for the guy. I liked him, and anyhow, he came to my house, and I was glad to see him. He showed up at my house and came in, and I immediately knew something was wrong. He wasn't the same jovial guy, that him and I used to just be really close. And he came in there with a message. He came in, pretty much got to the point. He said, you know that Tom Lakin's out of prison, don't you? I said, oh yeah, I know. I said, what, is that why you come by here? And he said, and he started telling me a story, and it was one of those things, the same way the perps do, where they're telling you a story that's designed to send you in a direction and away from them, to basically kind of give you a message, give you a threat without being threatening, and a veiled threat with a plausible denial kind of scenario. And I said, well, it's really good to see you again. You have a good day, and I escorted him to the door. So, he did things like that to make it obvious that who it was that was doing it to me. It became real obvious I wasn't getting any help from the authorities all the way up to the feds and such. So I thought, get out. You're swelling the drain and you're going downhill fast. Get out. Maybe you can recover some of this. And at that time, It had ruined the relationship between my daughter and me, and I didn't get it when that happened either, so I played right into their hands. I mean, I became angry with people that were close to me, friends and employees and such, best friends. Even my daughter, the last time we talked, it was ugly. You know, I was angry. You know, I thought that she was involved in this somehow, and you know, I didn't play it right. If I had it to do over again, I would have salvaged those relationships, but I didn't get it at the time. You know, I just didn't get it. So, and whenever I finally did, I realized, and I'd had attempts on my life. You know, I mean, serious attempts on my life. My pickup truck at one point had the lug nuts loosened on it. The hydraulic clutch in it had the severe leak put in it to where it wouldn't work. So if you went to push it in to try to stop, it would just keep taking you down the road. And the brake lines were loosened all at the same time in a perfectly good truck. And the thing of it wasn't me that was driving it. It was one of my employees. Whenever I was out on the road, I gave them the keys to my house and my pickup truck and my rental properties, said, take care of my home. They would do my laundry, clean my house, cut my grass, take care of my rental properties, all that stuff. They had a key to that pickup truck. Well, they about got killed in that pickup truck with all that wrong with it. Whenever I came home, you know, he told me, he said, Steve, he said, you ain't going to believe this, but the clutch went out and the brakes went out and the lug nuts were loose all at the same time. I didn't say anything to him, but I knew what happened, you know, and I just apologized, and he had already got the truck fixed. That was just one of them. One time, the house filled up with carbon monoxide. Whenever I had one of the guys that worked for me come and check it out, it had been obvious that somebody had tampered with the flue on the furnace to where it wouldn't open, and it filled up the house. And another time was on my tractor trailer, which was elaborate, and I don't even want to speak of that because that's the one that I have solid evidence of it being done. If I could ever get a lawyer or a non-corrupt FBI agent to take a look at it, that's a solid case. I mean, if I could get into a court, I'm not even a lawyer, I could win this one with what I've got here. So I'm going to leave that one alone for now, Ella. But with all that going on, I thought that it would be best to keep especially my daughter and granddaughters out of my life, and close friends and family and other people also. I thought, you know, you'll fix this. You'll fix this. You always do. You fix everything. You'll fix this. I didn't realize what we were up against. I didn't know what a TI was then. I just thought it was powerful people out to kill me, out to do me in, ruin my life, end my life. So I thought it'd be best to leave people out of my life. And I thought, well, whenever I fix this, if they don't kill me, whenever I fix it, I'll go back, explain it to them, repair relationships. That was 4 or 5 years ago. I ain't seen my daughter or grandchildren yet since. My father's died since then. My mother doesn't talk to me anymore. My friends, all of them, gone, you know. And I decided to get out of there, and I moved down here to Texas thinking, okay, that'll end it, you know. That was right before I moved down here. I started doing some research on the internet and started seeing other people having this done also, and I was kind of put 2 and 2 together. I figured out what TIs were, and some of them were whistleblowers, and I thought, well, maybe that's what I am, you know. I was just figuring it out, but I moved on down here to Texas.
Steven, how did you find the community, and how did you find out you were targeted? You just started, I got disconnected and had to call back, so you might have already stated that. I lost maybe a minute of your conversation or two. So how did you find out about targeted individuals?
Well, at a certain point, I guess like everybody does, at a certain point, you know, when you can't get any help from the FBI, from the county, the local county or state authorities, and I couldn't get a lawyer. I mean, especially in Madison County, they all loved Tom Lake, and they loved what he did to that courthouse. He made them rich, and then whenever all this went down, it kind of threw a wrench in that money-making machine that was the Madison County Courthouse. And, you know, I couldn't get any help. You start researching on your own. So you open up your laptop or you get on your computer and you just start looking. You know, I don't remember how the day that I stumbled on it, you know, but I just remember seeing. I don't remember how I did it, but I remember seeing other people on there that were talking about the same things and that they were having their lives destroyed and being stalked. I was being stalked at that point, you know. Everywhere I went, somebody was there to cause problems and, sit there next to me, sit there at the table next to me at a restaurant or a bar or something and have conversations that were directed at me and such, you know, the whole nonsense that they do. So I just started researching it, and I forget what I first seen on the internet. I found TIs, basically, you know. I found other people that were experiencing the same thing. Some of them were whistleblowers. Some of them had no clue why. Some of them were ex-CIA or FBI that knew too much, etc. You know, and I thought, well, I'm not alone here. You know, obviously this is something that's big and gone wrong. And obviously, if there's more than me, somebody's going to get a handle on this. I was sure at that point. Somebody's going to see this, and it's going to come to an end, which it hasn't. I mean, as we all know, this evil is huge and unchecked, and I'm not sure where the end is. I hope that I can help shed some light on it, though, Ella. You know. Yeah.
Well, I know you got together you went to the conference. And you have a great group of people. I know you found Karen Stewart, and you kind of started meeting people behind the scenes a little bit, or behind the podcast and the calls. And I know you worked together, and you developed Targeted Justice, the group, and so you're part of that. And if you like, I can bring in Midge, if you like, or if you want to tell a little bit more about your personal story, that's okay, too.
We can do it either way, you know. I can tell you what happened whenever I got down here to Texas, and
let's hear a little bit more about the targeting, and then we'll go to that. Sure, good idea.
Well, after I moved down here to Texas, I'll shorten it up a little bit if you'd like, Ella. Whenever I moved down here to Texas, I was convinced it would stop. I thought, you know, Texas, it's God and guns and Christians, and they don't put up with this nonsense, you know. Well, I was wrong, and in a way it was worse because there were people back in Illinois that knew what was happening to me, but they looked at me like, you messed with the wrong people, Baysden. You know, you messed with the wrong people, Steve. You know, you're done for, and even those that knew, they weren't going to say a word. They seen what was happening to me, and if it could happen to me, it could happen to them. You know, I had a little bit of money. I had a little bit of influence. I knew a lot of people, and it scared them, and I think that's part of what this is designed to do. You know, they do it to me. They can do it to anybody, and it silences people. It shuts them up, you know, so whenever I came here, it got worse in that respect because everybody believed everything they were told, and you know, I have no idea what they were told, but they looked at me like I was evil incarnate. And at that point, I still had that trucking company. I'd sold all my real estate in Illinois. I had the trucking company. Whenever I got down here, I couldn't get any work. It went from not getting good loads to not being able to get any work. I couldn't get a load. I mean, it was. And after buying this new house down here and doing a bunch of work on it, taking off about 2 months to fix it up and get moved in and everything, I was needing to get back to work. Couldn't get it. It wasn't going to happen. I was over. My trucking business was done. I wasn't going to be able to. I wouldn't have been able to haul a load for free. So I sold that tractor trailer and pocketed the money and sat there for a few months wondering what the hell was happening to my life. And I decided to try to get away from it. And I took that pocket full of money, and I drove to Mexico City in my pickup truck. Spent about 10 days down there, and it was horrible down there. I mean, it was real bad, and they weren't very nice about it. You know, I had federales tell me a couple of occasions, walk up to me while I was parking my truck or something, you need to take that truck and go back to Texas. You know, I mean, they were less than kind down there. I ended up getting a speeding ticket where the man told me that if I wanted to pay the ticket, if fight the ticket, I'd have to stay in Mexico for about a month and a half. Otherwise, I could give him $500 right there on the side of the road. So I got shook down for $500. I came back home, got on a plane, and that was whenever I started my European tour, which was, it's a story in itself. If you want to take a break and do something different for a moment and go back to that, that's fine. However, I could tell you what happened over there.
It's up to you. Let's go into more of your story. It sounds great. Whichever aspect.
Well, that's what I did then. I came back and I was in, I was convinced at that point that there was no getting away, that they had enough power to get me anywhere in the United States and even Mexico. And I thought, and I had plenty of money still, and I had nothing better to do. And I thought, take yourself a vacation. If you find a place that this doesn't happen, stay. So I got on a plane and I flew to Paris, and I spent 10 days in Paris. And the targeting was bad there. No matter where I went, I went to the Louvre and Eiffel Tower, etc. No matter where I went, they were right there. They were going to make sure that I wasn't going to enjoy my days in Paris. Yeah.
This is a global issue, and they probably just have some association. Did they seem French, the people that were around you, or what do you suspect?
Well, I believe they were, but most of Europe, whenever you go to Europe, everybody speaks. The French speak French and English. The Germans speak German and English. So it's not uncommon for someone that's a Frenchman to, I would say, 90%. All of the young French will speak English. Maybe the older ones won't know it, but in that respect, yeah, I think they were mostly French. I think they were. I think that and I believe they were. Am I 100% sure? No, but they were. I mean, some were obviously had a real strong French accent, but it followed me wherever I went, and I sat down at a cafe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, these networks are just global. They're everywhere, and whether they're some aspects might be government, others may not, just be criminal, but they're all criminal in my opinion. So whatever the case, these networks are global.
They are, and see, that was another thing I was doing, because at that time, after I moved here to Texas and was here for, 6-8 months before I took off, sold my truck and started traveling, I knew more of what a TI was. I'd done more research. I'd seen people on YouTube. I'd seen that. And, I'm one of those kind of guys that, I don't believe everything I see on the Internet. I think a lot of things are disinformation, especially whenever it comes to the TIs and such. It's out there. And whenever I've seen the few people that claimed that they were from, Belgium or Australia or England or whatever that were TIs, I thought, that just, I can't hardly believe it's international. I thought, this is a U.S. problem. This is corruption in the deep state of the U.S. That's all it is. So I kind of went to see for myself, and unless it was the long arm of the United States that was tracking me all over there, and I just don't believe it was. Especially whenever I got to Russia, I don't believe that they would mess around in Russia to harass somebody. Use resources. CIA assets in Russia to harass someone that angered a child molesting attorney. I just won't. So I believe it is international. I believe that one of the few things that countries like Russia and the United States work together on is whatever this is. I mean, whatever they think we are, they're all doing it to us. I mean, but it was bad in France, and at one point, after I got through seeing the sights and exploring what I wanted to see there and got tired of the nonsense there, I rented a car and I drove to Nuremberg. I stopped for a day in Kaiserslautern, and then I went to Nuremberg. That's where the Nazis had their party rally grounds and everything. A big World War II buff, and I wanted to see that. I spent a few days there. While I was there, there's a place called the Congress Hall that the Nazis built that's right outside the Zeppelin field in those rally grounds. big, huge building that's half built from the Nazi era. It's a massive structure. But I was exploring that, and that was whenever one of the guys from over there, the perps from over there, and he was German because whenever he first approached me, he was speaking German, but then he spoke English to me. Whatever the difference between the perps over there or from over here, they will talk to you. They will come up and let you know why they're there, basically, that, you pissed off the wrong people, and we're here to, but they had this wild-eyed fascination with me. I mean, like I was, like you would look at a celebrity or something, and I just didn't get it, and they wanted to know about me, while I'm trying to ask them, and I kind of used that to try to get information from them. That guy that approached me at the Congress Hall there, whenever I was inside that Congress Hall, he kind of even, how do I put it? He seemed to take a liking to me and almost like a sympathy for my plight. He knew what was going on. He was there. He was sent there for me. And he told me, he said, right before he left, he said, Steve, we were on the first name basis by then. He said, Steve, there are people that if they don't like what you say or even what you think, they will get you. And I said, who? Who are we talking about here? Come on, who are we talking about? He said, I can't tell you, I got to go. And sort of bodily stopping these people whenever they said they had to go. I mean, you can't do that. I would have ended up in a foreign prison, but that's what that man said to me. I ended up working my way on up to Berlin. I drove on up to Berlin, stayed at the Park Inn there in Alexanderplatz in East Germany, and I thought, in East Germany, these people dealt with the Nazis, the SS, the black shirts, and then after that was over, East Germany had to deal with the Stasi, for God's sakes, which is the closest relation to what we're dealing with. I said, it won't take place in East Germany. It just won't. It can't. It was so bad in East Germany. It was the worst that it's been anywhere. Worse than East Alton, Illinois. Worse than down here in East Texas. Worse than Mexico. Worse than France. East Germany. I wouldn't have believed it. But it was really bad there, Ella.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me because I watch Catherine Horton, and she's talked about Germany. I don't get to see a lot of her work, but I'm not surprised about Germany. But that's so interesting. Well, that's almost like a pleasant word. That, that's where so much of this technology and so much of what we experience is MK Ultra. It's all derived. Many people believe from World War II and the scientists that came over. So that's interesting.
It was. I think the Operation Paperclip. Those scientists over in Germany. I studied that and studied it. I as much as I despise what the Nazis said, those Germans were brilliant. If they wouldn't have been taken down by World War II, they would have been leaps and bounds ahead of every other country in the world in technology. They were that far ahead. And those scientists we brought over in Operation Paperclip, I've got a couple books on that I've studied on it. They were the precursor to this. That and the OSS. At the end of World War II, they created that OSS, which is the precursor of the CIA, and that is out of control. Our intelligence agencies, the CIA and that deep state, and our intelligence agencies are at the heart of this, and they are out of control. I am 100% convinced of that. They are off the leash. They have been fed so much money. And now the CIA, make no mistake about it, the reason you don't see anything about big cocaine busts anymore is because that would ruin their business. The CIA completely took over the cocaine trade. Completely.
I have heard that from a lot of reliable sources, people that have worked within the company, worked within the agencies, and that doesn't surprise me. First time I heard it, it shocked me a little bit. When I thought about it in the big picture in the history of America and what's been revealed to be fact at this point, it didn't surprise me after that.
Whenever I realized it was whenever I was in the trade. Whenever you get far enough in there, you find out who's running it. So, but anyway, they're completely There is no leash anymore. They're off the leash. They run things. They have more money. They have more influence. They have more power, more technology, and they are.
Kevin Schiff can give you some numbers about how much money's in the deep state and the shadow government. We're talking trillions. It's unfathomable amounts of money, and there's no oversight either. These are privatized aspects of the agencies, according to Kevin Schiff. And I do suggest people look him up online and on YouTube, because he gives amazing information in regards to the deep state and the military complex. Yeah.
It is, and most people have never ever encountered an FBI or a CIA agent, or they've never been in the underworld where they've encountered them like I have. They haven't been a TI and been exposed to them like I have, and then overseas, etc. I mean, and I read nonstop. I read a couple books a month, and I've studied online and read books about it, etc. But I've also lived it. I've lived it firsthand. Whenever you read it, you think that's somebody's opinion. Somebody wrote that, or they're right. I lived it. Did I see everything that I read in the books? No. But whenever you've seen enough by living life in that circle, in those depths, to where you've been exposed to it, you can believe what you're reading. You can. There's more of a realness to it, if you know what I'm saying in that respect. But anyway, back in Berlin, the things were really bad. I went to see a human rights lawyer there that's internationally known, that works on international human rights. It's worked for WikiLeaks, etc. I went there. They knew who I was before I got there. They wouldn't even hardly open the door. They just cracked it. It was obvious somebody was standing behind that door, giving that person information and trying to just get me out of there. When I left there, I went to a little cafe bar around the corner. I was in West Berlin. A man walked in there and handed the bartender a note. It was just me and the bartender, and we were getting along famously. She barely spoke English, I barely spoke German, and we were laughing and cutting up and having a good time. She walked in there and handed her a note, and I knew right then, I'd been living this too long at that point, what was up. She looked at that note, looked at him, looked at me, looked back at that note, and looked at him again with this look on her eyes. She walked around the bar and gave me a big hug and held my face like I was, like my grandmother used to do, and looked at me like, it was just the weirdest thing. And then she walked back around the bar. That guy started to walk away, and I was going, hold it. I said, who are you? I said, let me buy you a beer. Let's talk for a minute. He said, all right. So we walked down on the patio, sat down and talked, and he was another one of those European perps that they have no problem letting you know who they are. And we talked for a moment, and then the man told me, you need to let go. He had no idea where I was from. I may have said I was from Texas, but he had no idea my history. Or he shouldn't have. The man looks at me and he says, you need to let go of that stuff back in Illinois. I said, are you talking about the problems I got with the lawyers and such? Yes. You need to let that go. I said, well, why do you say that? He said, that has nothing to do with this. You need to let it go. I said, well, what does this have to do with then? No, I can't tell you that, but you need to let that go. And that's all the guy would say. And then he started asking me what I was doing there, and I said, what do you mean? You're here in Germany? No. What do you have to do? And I couldn't make heads or tails what this guy was trying to get at. Then he said he had to leave. He got up and insisted on giving me a big hug, and then looked at me like we were best friends, and he just walked away in the distance. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Oh, I don't even know what to make of that, but I thought it was just bizarre. But he was one of them. But they're different in Europe. I have no idea why. They're not angry. They've got like a fascination, and they even give you some clues. I mean, it was just bizarre. But anyway, the next day I went for a walk. I like that old architecture of the pre-World War II buildings that did get bombed in Berlin. Found one over near Alexanderplatz where I was at, and it happened to be a hall, a concert hall. And who was going to be there the very next night? And I think sometimes fate plays a part in this. It's called the Volksbahn. I got the ticket here for it still. The very next night, they were having a thing in there called First They Came for Assange. And live there was William Benny, Sarah Harrison of WikiLeaks, Richter Sotomayor, Strobe, and P.J. Harvey. And Assange was going to be streamed in live on the big screen on the screen behind him. So I bought a ticket and I went to that. It was pretty good. William Benny didn't show up. He got real sick, so they streamed him in live through the screen also. After it was over, I walked right down there to the stage, walked up on the stage, went to Sarah Harrison. If anybody doesn't know who she is, she's the gal from WikiLeaks that was sent to Hong Kong to get Edward Snowden. She got Edward Snowden there in Hong Kong. She flew him to Moscow where they were going to go into Ecuador. When they got to Moscow, they got held up. His passport got revoked. She stayed with him for, 2 months in that hotel in the airport there in Moscow that I flew in and out of. But anyway, I went down there and I walked straight up to her and I said, Sarah Harrison? She said, yeah. I said, I'm Steve Baysden. I'm from Texas. I said, I got a story for you. And I gave her the 5-10 minute rundown of what took place. She said, look, Steve, she said, I'm really, really interested. She goes, and I want to hear the rest of it, and I can help you. She said, I got to take care of these people on stage. They're my guests. I said, okay. She gave me her handwritten email address. I've got it here in front of me and said, you write me tonight. She says, we'll meet tomorrow. I'll tell you where to meet me. I went back to my hotel room. I sent her an email. I got no reply. I stayed in Berlin for 4 days. I got no reply. The targeting was just off the charts in East Berlin. I finally said, you know what, I'm going to try one more thing. And if I can get away from it there, I'm going to stay. And I was carrying a lot of cold hard cash, enough to get myself resettled. So I went down there by the Brandenburg Gate to the Russian embassy, and I got a visa, and I flew to Moscow. Whenever I got to Moscow, I went to a hotel. First 2-3 days, great. I thought, I may have found a new home. No targeting. People were nice. Nobody spoke English. It was difficult because, unlike in Europe, few people speak English, and I thought, well, maybe I can learn Russian. But after about 3 days, things started getting weird. The targeting wasn't the same there, but it took off. They put a guard at the front of my building, at the front door, put another guard at the back door, and they had a cab that sat out front that wouldn't take anyone anywhere except for me. Whenever I walked out, they escorted me to that cab. Same cab driver every time. He was my cab driver. I don't know if he was FSB or what, but that was my cab. And the targeting started everywhere I went. They were there. They didn't even try to hide it. They were there. They were following me, and I'd turn around, same person be there. He would smile and wave, but he was there no matter where I went. So I knew I wasn't getting away from it there. And after a few days, and I even went to, I shouldn't even say this, but I even went to what's called the, what was it? I've got it written down around here somewhere. It was, it was a department where they, I've got it written down here somewhere. It was, I think they called it the SSB or something like that, Immigration Services. Anyway, I was going to see about staying, see about getting asylum for a while, tell them what was going on. Whenever I went to that office, they knew who I was when I got there, and they were less than receptive. And I thought, you can't get away from this in Moscow. Well, halfway around the world, it's still here. I left there and proceeded the next day to go on a tour of Moscow drinking, which I don't drink much anymore, but I was then, and I was a little bit angry at that point. And so I started walking around and drinking. I ended up at a bar just outside the Kremlin walls, just north of the Red Square there. I walked in there, And this is a country that's not got a lot of English-speaking people in it. That's not a second language for them. And there was 2 or 3 English-speaking guys at the bar, and I sat down there, and one of them came over and sat next to me. And within about 15 minutes, he started the whole perp thing, you know, talking about things that he shouldn't know about what I did in Texas 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks earlier or whatever. And I was about half drunk, and, you know, I used to be quite the fighter, etc., and I don't take too kindly to such things. And I kind of went off on this guy. I mean, I let him have it, you know, and he knew I knew who he was, and there was no sense in keeping it a secret. And the guy proceeded to tell me that this was all about national security. I said, what national security? I'm not even in the United States. Whose nation are we talking about at this point? Or is it world security? You know, and it just got ugly. And it came to the point where I told the man, you know, what Benjamin Franklin said. I said, you know, anybody that's willing to give up their liberty and privacy for a little bit of security deserves neither. And I called him a foul name, a pretty bad name, and that guy blew up. He threw his beer down on the bar, backed up, started screaming at me in English, calling me every MFer and every other name in the book. That place was packed, and it went dead quiet. He turned around and in Russian started yelling at the crowd in there, who was just wide-eyed looking at him. I have no idea what he was saying. Whenever he got through, he stormed out the door. I told the bartender, I said, look, I'm sorry. He spoke English. I said, look, I'm real sorry. I said, maybe I better pay my bar tab and leave. And he looked at me real serious, and he said, I think that's a good idea. I paid my bar tab, and I walked out in the middle of Red Square. I'd been drinking quite a bit. At that point, I got about halfway across Red Square, walking towards my hotel. It dawned on me, you are walking all the way back to your hotel. It's like 4 miles, and you're half drunk. I'm standing in the middle of Red Square looking around. There's shadowy figures here and there, and I thought, you know, you don't have no idea what you just did here, and you could be getting yourself killed here in Moscow. And it was at that point, Ella, and this is where we'll wrap it up there's more details, but this is the basics of it. And at that point, I stood there in the middle of Red Square, and I said, if I can get myself back to my hotel room and out of this country and back to Texas without getting killed, I'm going back, and I'm going to try to find other people in this community, and I'm going to fight this. There is no getting away from it. You're standing in the middle of Red Square, and you just got an altercation with a perp, and you're going to get yourself killed. So that was the end of that tour. I ended up going back to the hotel room, woke up next day, booked a flight, came back to Texas, called Karen Stewart, first person I talked to in the TI community, and then it took off from there, met other people. She introduced me to Midge, met other people, went to the Boston conference, met more, meeting people online, making some friends, met you, Ella, and now we've got this group, and I'm going to do all I can to fight them. I mean, we've got no choice. There's nowhere we can go to get away from it. And it's just pure evil. I mean, and it's happening to good people that had no contacts with people like I did. Never belonged in the underworld. Never wronged a powerful attorney that was friends with presidents that hung out with him. And it's just wrong. It's evil, and we've got to defeat it.
Yep, you're right. From this point, I'm going to bring Midge into the call. Midge, if you can star 8, I'll bring you into the call and the conversation. Here she is.